Wisdom. It's why you come to this podcast and all the podcasts on the Bladt Entertainment Network. And speaking of wisdom, I wanted to take a quick moment to let everybody know about a great new app that I'm on, the Wisdom app. And you can find me on there. I am also on there as Bladtcast, Bladtcast. And you're going to ask, well, what is this? There's so many apps. And Wisdom is an app where users can log on and find conversations that you want to join live. And you can ask questions in the back and forth. And it's basically kind of an idea of finding people who can be mentors and offer advice. And if there's anybody who is better suited as being a mentor and offering advice than me, I haven't met them, much less Eric Connor, who's an actual teacher. It's worth checking out. It's absolutely free, and I wanted to let people know that you can join up for free. You can look for me, and I will have a little chat on there on Monday, December 27th at 4 p.m. Pacific. It'll be, I think it'll be about 10-15 minutes. Anything you want to chat about, we can do it there. So please let me share my wisdom with you on the Wisdom map. But for now, Spider-Man does whatever a spider can, spins a web any size, catches thieves just like flies. Look out! Here comes the Spider-Man. Welcome to Marvel Movie Talk, a special Marvel Movie Talk right here on the Bladt Entertainment Network. We are about to talk about Spider-Man No Way Home, and everybody's telling you don't spoil Spidey. We're not going to spoil it because if you're here, you should be watching. You should absolutely be watching. Only if you have seen Spider-Man No Way Home. We are going to talk about everything about it, and we don't want anybody to have it spoiled. I don't want that on my conscience.
No.
So if you're here, please see the movie first. But I am excited to talk about it as always. I am Christian Bladt, making a triumphant return here to the show. The one and only Katie Kawamoto. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys tonight?
We're doing great. And our resident Professor X, because he's a professor, Eric Connor, who our video listeners can see on screen as De La Eric, which don't think that I didn't recognize De La Soul from the end credits. Not only are they 3 feet high and rising, not
Very
only
good.
are they me, myself, and I, they also sang to us about the power of three. So much to talk about and so much to say. And it's so hard to figure out where to begin for our Marvel movie talk audience. When we talked about Hawkeye episode 5 on Wednesday, I had already seen this movie, and I think if you've seen it now, you understand why it was pretty much impossible to talk about. Where I was just like, it was great, go see it, peace out, because it's like it's too hard, and people started asking questions. Well, what about that? I was like, I can't answer it. I can't answer any of your questions. But tonight, we will answer all the questions because we've seen it. So I don't know. So if
So
you
in
have
a
questions,
way, so in a way, Christian, you were much like Andrew Garfield in his promotional tour for Tick Tick Boom, where
yep,
people kept asking him, "Are you in Spider-Man?" And he's like, "I don't know how many times to tell you that I'm not in it." I mean, yeah,
yeah,
he's lying, but I just felt so bad for the dude. Like, yo, he's trying to promote his new film, and
Right.
y'all are not letting go of the fact that he might be in Spider-Man.
yeah, no, and it's like, look, I think if we've learned anything in recent years, that there's no reason you can't lie to the media, and then this is an absolutely perfect opportunity where Andrew Garfield had to lie to the
Yep.
media. I'm glad he did. you know, if he needs to continue lying to the media, that's absolutely fine. So, Katie, we are nothing if not chivalrous here on all of the Black Cast Entertainment Network shows, including the Black Cast, including Marvel Movie Talk. So, of course, we believe firmly in ladies first. So, I would love to give you the opportunity. Before I give you the opportunity to give us your overall thoughts, I will give you the opportunity to say hello to our fourth joining us now, Mr. Nate Miller.
That was an
Hello.
incredible segue.
It's just be ready for anything. Just it's like the Boy Scouts say, be prepared. And boy, did they sometimes learn that the hard way. But Katie, I
Yes.
wanted to let you start. Big picture, what you wanted, what you just think overall, walking out of that theater, expectations heading into it, what you thought, everything. Just hit us. What did you think?
Expectations going in was, man, I really hope all the rumors are true. Because I didn't want to have all these hopes and expectations because, with big hopes and expectations, I could quote MJ. I could literally quote MJ when I say this. Like, if you expect like disappointment, I think she was saying, you won't be upset when it happens or something. I forgot what it was. But the opposite of that is I don't want to get too hyped and get too stuck in all this what if that, because as we know with like some of the Disney Plus shows, they pulled a fast one on us and they everybody thought they knew what was going on and we didn't. And so but it still happened. I still got like, oh my gosh, I need this to be what happens. And I gotta say, match point, like dude, exceeded expectations. I even though I had high expectations, I thought it was even better than they were. And when today, when everybody was asking, what did you think of it? Trying to not spoil it for our coworkers who hadn't seen it, I just went, that was my thoughts. Was
Yeah, and that's not a spoiler. You managed to not spoil anything,
I
and
did. I figured I would we'd ease into the spoilers, so I didn't
yeah,
spoil anything.
yeah,
That's what I
no,
told customers today when they're like, "Oh, you saw it." I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "No spoilers." I'm like, "Don't worry, fellow nerd.
yeah,
I got you. Not going to spoil it." They're like, "How was it?" I was like, "Amazing."
yeah. That's all you can say. Or you could do the sort of the interesting. Sometimes people will post fake spoilers, but then that can be annoying because then they're telling you things that aren't happening.
I hate
But
those.
what I like to do are spoilers from other movies. It's like, well, it turns out that Peter Parker was Kaiser Soze the whole time, and Ned was dead the whole movie. Doesn't that just blow your mind? Nate, I know that you saw it for the first time this afternoon, so it's all still very fresh.
Yes.
Were did it live up to the hype?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say exactly what she said, but like I had very high expectations and it exceeded them. I I don't have anything really bad to say. I don't have any like criticisms about it, which is very unusual for me. I liked it a lot. It was really good. And I don't know if I'm just still like wrapped up in the hype. I very much want to see it again. Um but yeah, it was really good. It is the quintessential Spider-Man movie. Like,
Yeah, there's not a lot of like good movies. You're able to kind of find a couple holes here and there and things. And in all honesty, I didn't have criticisms, but our friend Daniel Drew, who I know is in the chat right now, he messaged me after he saw it, and he sort of added something. I'm like, you know what, that would have been nice, but it doesn't make the movie any less great. Is this idea of at the end when Peter's at the cemetery, what if Uncle Ben was buried right there next to it, and maybe we even sort of pull out and see that. I'm like, yeah, that would have been okay. That would have been nice. We've still never seen Tom Holland's Uncle Ben. You know, so
Did he have an Uncle Ben? Did they confirm that he had an Uncle Ben?
yeah, he in Homecoming, I think he references it in a
Because he says
way.
you've been through a lot, but he
Yeah.
doesn't
Well, you
essentially
watched it more
say.
recently than I did,
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Like
But
in the beginning, he says, "Aunt May, I know you've been through a lot," but he doesn't say like any specifics about
yeah,
what it was.
yeah.
Yeah.
And Ivan Soto says in the cemetery, why did they hide the year? I think just because it's so hard to figure out the continuity.
Yeah.
How far in the future they are because of the snap and the blip and all that, and also, so like if the tombstone said, died 2027, that's very distracting to everyone watching. Like, wait, what?
Yeah.
Wait,
Yeah.
Eric, I wanted to, you know what? For your sake, I'll say I was saving the best for last. But anyone who went last, I would say that. So I want to give you
I'm
the
just wounded.
well, good.
You
But
said
you're all
Friday night would be a night of happiness and joy, not
no,
pain. And
no,
anger.
no, 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 not when we're living in where we're all walking around in Peter Parker's shoes. Which I do have with me, actually, Peter Parker's shoes, which we'll take a look at some stuff on
Closest thing I
Instagram.
found was my El Santo mask. Sorry, I'm
Oh,
a little
sweet.
bit
I
off
have my
brand.
Peter Tingle shirt on. It's a Funko
Oh,
shirt.
very nice.
Ah,
And
I
again,
have
we'll
him.
show off Instagram, but I have a very festive Spider-Man
man.
Christmas shirt.
I don't have any Spider-Man apparel.
Oh,
It's
Nate,
okay.
it's fine. But honestly, that sweatshirt looks like something that Peter would wear in any of these movies, so I think it's fine.
Do I look like
It's
a youth pastor?
yeah, a hip youth pastor. So Eric,
Yes,
your thoughts, just overall thoughts. We're gonna get into all the specifics,
sure.
but big picture, what did you think?
Well, I so normally I go to see these movies like on a Thursday night, but I go with one of my buddies, and then maybe during the weekend I'll take my kids because I like going without having 100 questions asked of me during the movie, and I want it to be untouched and perfect and whatnot. But last night things changed because my sons got to come with me and my buddy Lou, and this was the first time that we've seen these movies, but like later on. But in terms of an opening night, a Thursday night, with the timing, it's like okay, just one more day of school, let's do it. But I did have rules. I said, gentlemen, you're not going to ask your dad a bunch of questions during this movie. Like, what if I have questions? I'm like, then you're going to have questions, and they're going to stay with you for 2.5 hours, and then
Write
we'll
them down.
discuss it all. So I laid ground rules. It was the close. I mean, it's the most parental I've been in my 13 years of being a parent. In essence, I laid every rule out, and at
Yeah,
the end of the film, we all were equally giddy. Seeing this Thursday night, opening night, I can't even begin to tell you how much that added and how much it made me miss. I don't know, all the shit we love, for the past 2 years. And really, I think one of my sons said it best. Even Michael Shirley would love this movie.
yeah. Your son said that.
Yes, they are fascinated by him. I think they want to study him as like an extra credit assignment at school. It's
Oh
just hard to
yeah,
figure out. Does it fall under chemistry, biology, math?
yeah. I mean, I think all of the above, and it'd be a very important independent study to be able to break down all of the finer qualities of our pal Michael Shirley, who I think still hasn't watched Far From Home yet, even though we told him earlier this week that
He's
it's on
been
Disney
busy.
Plus. So
So Far From Home is on Disney Plus.
I think it
It's
is
the only
now.
one.
It wasn't for a while, but maybe
Because
my
none of
understanding
the
is
other
it's,
movies were.
oh, none of the other Tom Holland ones were.
No,
No, none of the movies that I saw were on there. Except for like, I mean, Civil War, but that's not a Spider-Man movie.
Yeah.
Peacock had the Tobey Maguire trilogy. Nothing had Amazon Prime rental for the Amazing Spider-Man movies, and then I didn't see any Spider-Man live action films on Disney Plus when I checked.
Well,
So
if you're old like me, you just have them all on Blu-ray, so you don't have to worry about where
we
they might
had
be.
we had the Amazing Spider-Man, the first one, and then
Okay.
we actually went to Target to be like, do they have the Amazing Spider-Man 2 so we can just buy it? Because unpopular opinion. I like it. It's a conversation for another day. They didn't have it.
Oh no, it's going to be part
No,
of
it's
this
a conversation for
It-
today.
it's definitely part of a
You're
conversation.
not getting
for
off
today.
that
Yes.
easy.
Because
Yeah.
because I agree with you. Yeah.
What?
We have a lot to say about Andrew Garfield.
But-
yeah.
God.
To echo off of what he was saying is about when you're saying that you gave your kids ground rules. I think that's great that you're like no questions, because when I went to Endgame for the second time, this one lady was in the theater next to us, had not seen apparently any Marvel movies ever, and was asking the person she
That's
was
where you
with
start.
questions every 30 seconds. And 20 minutes into the movie, and I don't like causing a scene, I was like, shut the hell up. And they're like, I'm sorry, she hasn't seen any of the movies. I'm like, not my problem.
Yeah.
You don't talk during a movie like this. If you haven't seen any of the movies, why the hell are you here?
And that
Like,
old
I
woman's
lost
name was
it.
Aunt May.
And they ended up leaving halfway through the film, probably because the person who was with her had no idea what the hell was going on.
Yeah. It's like, well, why is he so angry? Who's that? Yeah.
Exactly. And it wasn't like if it had only been like a few questions. I'm a forgiving person, but I'm like, you're not going to talk through this whole movie.
So
It's only going to get more confusing.
Yeah.
Okay, you ever should know my children anytime, by the way. Green light, please do.
Haywood Wong in the chat was asking if any of us had the opportunity to buy any commemorative popcorn buckets or soda cups.
They
They
didn't
did
have
not
any.
have those at the AMC that I went to. And I
Not
don't know if
either.
other chains, like I know Cinemark is actually really good at commemorative cups. So
I'm assuming just El Cap.
yeah. Oh yeah, that's true. The El
Yeah.
Capitan, the in Hollywood would
They
certainly
always
have
do.
some good ones. Yeah.
I'm still reveling in my Happy Meals Eternals toy, so I'm fine.
What else do you need?
My
You
roommate got super excited too.
The
Greatest tie-in ever.
I bought my son a set of Eternals pajamas because they were marked down to $6.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? At some point, he's gonna come around. He'll want to see that. So let's see. I think this is a good place to start. Actually, Daniel asked this question: how was everyone's theater viewers? So the other people there is what he's asking about. My crowd yesterday was amazing and freaked out about everything. Today's only freaked out. Oh yeah, because Daniel's also seen it twice. Today's only freaked out over the Peters, Eddie, and the Doctor Strange 2 footage, which I don't think anybody need to freak out over that. I mean, it's like interesting, but it's a glorified trailer at the end of the movie. So
it was still a good trailer.
Yeah. And I was talking to a friend of mine who he was surprised that there weren't bigger reactions for the villains. And I'm like, well, the villains were in the trailer, so people knew that they were in it, so really the big reveals, I think, come down to the simple fact, and when I say this, I want to make sure that it's on the screen. The big reveals, the things that people were the most excited about, was seeing the other Peter Parkers. But way before you get to that in the movie, was Matt Murdock's cane.
Yep.
Then seeing his face, and then when he caught the brick. So there's 3 separate reactions for Matt Murdock, and all the things that go with it. And obviously it asks some similar questions. We'll keep it to this. Questions that were brought up in the latest episode of Hawkeye. There are some very similar questions that raises that are not answered. But apparently episode 6 of Hawkeye will help us be able to start to figure out whether or not the Netflix series, plural, are actually canon, or if they're some degree of retcons. So I think that there was a lot of excitement over a lot of these reveals. I don't think really most of the villain. I don't know that anybody was super excited that the Lizard was on screen. It was just mostly that he was there for comedic effect. But let me ask you first, Nate. Your theater earlier today, was there a lot of like very verbal, like audible reactions?
I am on the other spectrum of I'm not really a fan of that. I don't mind a few moments of clapping and cheering at pivotal points in the movie, but my I don't know. It was a bunch of kids. It got kind of silly at one point. They were just clapping to like clap. But it was good. There was a few moments like you said when you see Toby and when you see Andrew and there was another big one too. Oh, when Doc Ock does his turn and like helps them instead of actually hurting
Yeah.
them. They seem to like that too.
Yeah, big reaction for Andrew Garfield. Much bigger reaction for
Ooh.
Tobey Maguire.
Yeah.
But
I did not clap for Andrew.
yeah, okay. This will get. He's like, I'm going to sit on my hands. And
Christian
I
knows
will-
where this is
There's
going.
no
Yeah.
applause coming from this crowd.
No, it's good. I like.
Boo.
I like
I didn't
when.
boo. Okay, I'm just saying when Toby came out, I went yay.
Yeah, but what you don't want is what I call the Married with Children audience. You don't want the Kelly Bundy. Ooh, you don't want that.
Yeah.
So some applause, but I think that people were legitimately surprised by some of these things. And I think that, yes, I do agree with you, Nate. That's like, oh my God, something I recognize is on the screen. Oh my God, it's Chewbacca. Yeah, Chewbacca's in a lot of movies. It's
Yeah.
okay. You
There's
don't
a
have to
certain
apply.
point, especially with Marvel movies, where it's like, yes, every 5 minutes there's a reference to something. You don't need to cheer every time.
Yeah. No,
But yeah,
it's
there is still something special about going to see it early with the people who are very excited about it
Yeah.
and getting that energy when you're in the theater, especially for this type of movie too.
Yeah, the first screening that I went to was a press screening, and it is definitely not like in sports where there's supposed to be no cheering in the press box. It's a lot of nerds who do shows probably just like this one, except with a bigger audience. And there was a lot of cheering and a lot of, that was like, I think that's the crowd where it's like, oh yeah, you're gonna cheer Matt Murdock's Kane before you even see him because you know what that means. And obviously, we knew that there was a chance he was going to be in this, but you didn't really know. What about you, Eric? Your theater were there any Kelly Bundy woos, or was it a little bit more subdued than that?
Oh no, this crowd was wonderfully riotous, and and actually one of the ones that what'd you say?
Yours was a Thursday night, like it's 6:30
AMC
or something.
Burbank, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah.
Gen Pop, as you would know it, Christian, for us who don't go
Go
to this
AMC Burbank.
And
yeah. Hey, look, I went to the AMC 8. It's just it was
you
it
at
was
like
my
10
second.
a.m. I mean, that's not Gen Pop.
Yeah, look. Some of us watch our movies in solitary. Okay,
Right.
I watched in the hole. Okay, but I'm glad you
Well,
watched it out in the yard.
one moment that actually got a really loud pop was when the pumpkin bomb rolled up, and that that was actually one of the best reactions for me of the whole night, because that came from super fans, and also the idea of like, yeah, we deserve to have a better shot at Green Goblin. And not to get too far ahead, but I thought that was maybe, of all the many surprises of this film, it just reminded us like how great an actor Willem Dafoe is, which is not a surprise, and how you just have to get rid of the fucking mask, and all of a sudden, like, Green Goblin was 1,000 times more interesting, and also it didn't feel like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers,
No,
which
and
also helped.
also you got very close to a comic book accurate costume because he
Right.
had the purple hoodie.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
you weren't gonna have him have like the 1890s stocking cap that somebody would wear to bed, but it was like he had that look, and I'm like,
Yeah.
how is
It
this
was kind
better
of
than that?
Hobgoblin-esque.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely. And it's like,
Mhm.
how is this better than the armor that they must have spent a ton of money 20 years ago to develop?
But also, it was 20 years ago, and everybody had that armor.
That's true. Yeah, that's a great point.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and he was. I mean, the response to him was great, and also, by the way, the moment when they're all pointing at each other, like that meme, like that, like the place was so loud and so like thunderous in its applause and laughter that like I didn't even hear what they were saying at all, but we all knew what the joke was, and
Yeah.
I mean that was sustained laughter too. That was like people were laughing for like a minute straight after that moment. So it was a great crowd. I'm so glad. I
It
saw it
was
last night.
it was sustained laughter where people couldn't stop. Like Artie Lang on Joe Buck's HBO show. It was like that
Exactly,
level of
yeah.
it was that like it's really just for me and you. But
Yeah,
Katie,
we're playing
talk a
mature.
little bit about your 11 what was it 11:15
11 o'clock
class?
at night. Yes.
11 o'clock at night. I mean, look,
Yes.
that's
Even better.
people might have been hitting MacGuffins, which is the bar inside the AMC before then.
So I didn't want to go at 11 originally.
Yeah.
I was trying to get IMAX at, I know it's not that much earlier, but I was trying to get the 10:30 IMAX showing at City Walk because I have seen every opening in IMAX at City Walk on opening night for like the last 5 or 6 movies. But unfortunately, I got stuck trying to get tickets for 4 hours, and when it finally got me through there after 2 hours, it didn't let me book the tickets, and then I had to wait 2 more hours to get tickets, and I just tried to find the earliest thing I could find that wasn't just standard. I saw it in the prime screen at AMC 16 in Burbank, the ones that had the recliners, but it was still the decent sized theater, and I'll see it in IMAX hopefully on Monday. But dude, it was loud. It honestly was louder than Endgame, which surprised me.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
so
fair.
that was something I forgot to say in my overall reactions was I actually liked this better than Endgame, and I loved Endgame, but I liked this better.
It-
And we'll see if I still feel that way
it's
after
a
the
little
second time.
it's a little bit more of a feel good movie, even though
Yes.
there's some sadness.
Exactly.
And
So
Endgame's a bit of a bummer. Yeah.
obviously, Matt Murdock, people lost it. I mean, I
Yeah.
was losing it. Peter, as soon so my internal reaction was Ned's like, I want to see Peter Parker. And I literally grabbed my roommate's arm and was like, the office gif of Michael Scott going, it's happening! It's happening! Went through my brain. Like, that is what went through my brain. And then, of course, it erupted in a loud cheering, clapping, all that. And then, of course, when Toby came on as well. And it was like, there wasn't too much, just, there was some little claps here and there, like when other things would pop up, but not like overly excessive, like every 5 minutes or anything. It didn't seem like there was anyone, like any kids, or if they were behaved. Like there was no, I didn't hear anything like that or anything. Apparently one
Yeah,
guy,
I would hope at the 11 p.m. show that
you never
there
know.
weren't.
I mean,
Yeah, it's
people
true.
take their kids to horror nights, so anyway. But my roommate, she's like, did you notice the guy who jumped up and out of his chair and was like, like just jumped up out of excitement? I'm like, I didn't. So, yeah. So,
Yeah.
I had that
like,
exact same thing behind me when Andrew Garfield appeared. The guy behind me, I mean, I don't know what he was doing. In fact, I kind of don't want to know what he was doing.
No. Yeah.
But there was
Keep your eyes
madness.
forward. You know the etiquette. Keep your eyes forward.
Yeah. Well, and my roommate loves Andrew Garfield. We both love Andrew Garfield, but she really loves him. Like loves him more than I do. And she was just ecstatic. So she might have been a majority of the sound, let's be real. But but I do have to counter that with the last 30 minutes hit and it was silent. Like it was silent because everybody was feeling all the emotions, and you could tell that everybody was like, I don't want people to hear me crying, but I'm crying. And you knew everyone was crying because man, I lost it. So that it was like the complete opposite once it ended. Even through most of the credits, it was still pretty quiet in the theater.
I mean, it's
So.
fairly stressful. It's like the old movies, the dads waiting outside the delivery room, before they start handing out cigars, they're smoking cigarettes because they're so nervous. And yeah, I mean, it definitely had a lot of that edge of your seat feeling, and they just were able to do such a great job bringing so many different aspects together. I mean, to be able to bring in, I think 20 years worth of these movies in a way that, I think we've certainly become accustomed to varying degrees of reboots. It happened with the Batman films, and really that's what we had gotten with the Spider-Man films, is like when you bring in a new actor, you kind of are going to push aside really what went before, and this is the same, like a new James Bond is a good way to look at it as well. And the fact that they were able to figure out a way, it's like, no, all this stuff still counts, just in different universes. I think it was very creative, but I do think also that the the pump was primed for all of us to be okay with this because of Into the Spider-Verse. You know, we were all okay with this idea. It wasn't as crazy as it would have seemed if they like decided to, the first Tom Holland movie was this one. Like no, you gotta get to a point where people can kind of wrap their heads around it. And I at some point there'll probably be people that are like, why were there three of them? But I think in general, I think they did a pretty good job explaining it. And yeah, look, it's the thing about the movie that the first screenings that they had of it, they only let people see 40 minutes. And I think that was really important to do because we know what happens when you let Variety see Eternals before it comes out, so and that level of spoilers, like that's a casting spoiler for like a cameo at the end of a movie. Actually, and I think we all figured that they were in this movie, but you didn't know. When you sat down, you didn't know they were in it. You just figured they were in it.
And hoped.
It just, yeah, they could have told the story without them, but
I knew they were in it.
No, well, yeah, but I mean, look, there were set leaks and stuff like that. There were photos, but for sure, I think there are a lot of people that weren't 100% sure that they were in it. But you just knew, Nate, like in your soul, or you were like,
Absolutely.
yeah, I saw a picture of Andrew Garfield
Absolutely.
on set. Yeah.
Once I heard about what like the plot was supposed to be about, and then once
Yeah.
I heard the rumor that I didn't know for certain that Andrew was going to be in the movie, but I
Right.
knew for certain that Toby was going to be in the movie.
Right.
Not like even before the leaks and stuff, which just definitely cemented it. I knew absolutely that Toby was going to be in the movie because there, outside of all of even just the Spider-Man stuff, because of the scope of MCU now and where they're at, and with them looking for a place to fold MCU in, and with what happened with Loki and stuff, like it makes a lot of sense for them to dip into another pre-established Marvel movie properties universe and bring someone over to create this multiversal thing for the general audience, to allow them to bring in X-Men from another universe, to allow them to bring in an Iron Man from another universe, or recast whoever they want now, because we've established that there is this multiverse of things that are similar but not exactly the same. So all of that together made me absolutely positive that Toby was going to be in the movie. Now, I did not think that Charlie was going to be in the movie. I was very on the fence about that. I wanted him to be, but I was not sure. But that was very cool. Although I do like wish I mean, there's only so much time, and I do think they did a great job with the time. The pacing is excellent. It doesn't feel like it lags at all. But I do kind of wonder, like, how did he end up? He just so happens to end up with Matt Murdock.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not complaining, but
honestly, if this incarnation of Peter worked at the Daily Bugle, it wouldn't be that hard to imagine, although I guess Ben Urich didn't write for the Daily Bugle. It was like the New York Bulletin. But, there are ways where it would sort of like, I don't quite know. If I had to guess, Matt Murdock probably offered his services. He kind of was like, he's like,
because he's
this is
super.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And he
but
knows
you're
that
right.
they don't have money and all sorts of stuff, yeah.
It's also true, yeah. I know.
That does remind me too, the one time where I did cheer very loud and nobody else in the theater cheered was the reveal of J. Jonah Jameson in his room on the table with the green screen behind him.
Yeah.
And just the whole, like, having J. Jonah Jameson be, doing an Alex Jones.
Well, with the Daily
just,
Bugle supplements.
I just lost it. It was
so
just
perfect.
so good. It was so good. And most of the other people in the theater did not. They lost that reference, but it was.
Well, and just think about how much it would have blown Alex Jones's mind to be like, I've been telling you for years about the lizard people, and here's one of them now in New York City.
And it ran past him, and he went, "Oh."
Yeah, no, I think that they used him. They used J. Jonah Jameson quite well. I think that the performances from Alfred Molina, I think, was great because he's always great. I mean, that's really the way I look at it. And I think that there was I think a lot of range for Willem Dafoe in this. And my understanding, I heard that he said he would do this movie if they let him do his own stunts. I don't think he did all of them, but he's in his 60s, and even if he did one stunt, I'm like, that's probably too many. You're not Tom Cruise hanging on the outside of an airplane.
Yeah.
But I think that he really did so much. He added so much to a character that I think was fairly well defined by 2002 standards. But man, there were bite marks all over the scenery in those movies. I mean, he was, and it was great for him because he was great at it. And I think that just sort of getting to kind of put this little bow on it, a little cherry on top. I think that he was great. And Thomas Hayden Church had like an hour on set because the rest of it is all like CGI Sandman, but I thought that Jamie Foxx was so much better in this movie than he was in Amazing
Excellent.
Spider-Man.
Thank God.
So good.
And the way he looked was better in this movie because
Everything.
the rest of you guys don't know. Christian knows. I tried to rewatch all of them before we went to go see it last night. Unfortunately, due to some other things that happened, we were not able to finish Into the Spider-Verse, or we didn't finish Homecoming, and we didn't get to see Far From Home. But we watched all the first 5 films, which we had not seen in a long time. But I'm glad we did, because I was like, there's some stuff that I forgot, and this just kind of like helped. And like, for example, it was fresh in our mind what Electro looked like in Amazing Spider-Man 2, and I was like, and Christian knows I was live tweeting all of it, and it was every thought that came to my brain, I was tweeting it. And I was like, Electro looks super dumb. Like, that was my thoughts. And then he came out, and when he turns back into like looking like Jamie Foxx, I was like, okay, I'm on board with this. This is not as bad. They look like he is just has a normal look, but he is full of electricity, and I liked it so much better.
Well, and I think on that end, the director woke up and was like, listen, I've got Willem Dafoe, I've got Jamie Foxx, multiple Oscar nominee, Oscar winner. Like, let them do that thing they can do and don't get in the way. And so, like, let Jamie Foxx be kind of cool. That's okay.
Yeah.
Like,
it's funny. My friend Adam texted me. I don't know. I guess in Baltimore, they don't know how chat works on YouTube. But I guess he's watching, because he says that Jamie Foxx said he wouldn't do this. He wouldn't do this movie if he had to be blue again.
Yeah. I heard that too.
Yeah.
But even the whole character is markedly different from the human version.
Yeah,
of him,
which I think there is a canonical reason for that. Yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, Electro does not find out that Andrew Garfield is Peter Parker in the movie.
In that movie.
So this has to be a different Electro that is similar, as in still Jamie Foxx, but not the blue one. So like there is kind of a wiggle room. I don't know if that was how intentional that was. I'm sure somebody thought about it, because they're very good about canon.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a good point, because you would assume there are multiple Tobey Maguires, multiple Andrew Garfields,
right?
Even a couple of Nicholas Hammonds. Shout out to the 78 TV series. You got to get a couple of those in there.
I will say, like, I understand why they didn't, and maybe it was not even an idea, but how cool would it have been for him to open up one more portal and we get Miles Morales, and this is how he was introduced to it. Like, I was like,
I felt like there was no point.
But his name's not Peter, so it wouldn't really work.
When you say that, do you mean a live action Miles, or do you mean Into the Spider-Verse Miles? Because I thought that was
like a live action Miles. No, that would be crazy too. But I don't know if they're ready to go that far.
I was just thinking it would be interesting if they're like, oh hey, guess what? We're bringing an animated Spider-Man.
So you think that we don't need to turn this into Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
I mean, I would be very down for that, but baby steps. Okay,
yes,
we just got to the multiverse, let alone 2D versus 3D.
Yeah, I think
Tony-
the
yeah.
the nod to Miles where Jamie Foxx
Yes, was
says
excellent.
that maybe one
So
day there'll be
Electro was an excellent villain in
yeah
this.
in this
Only bested by William Dafoe with
Yeah.
an excellent presentation of Green Goblin that somehow it outdoes himself
yeah
from previous. Like not only like the physicality and the way the fights were done, but just the way I so much admire the composition of this film. Because after seeing the trailer, which by the way, now I will never trust a Marvel trailer ever again, because there's so many scenes where they had to literally have shot an alternate take
Yeah.
just for the trailer. Like they must be doing
Yeah.
that now.
yeah. No, I think that they definitely did that for Endgame. There were different groupings of characters than went in the movie, like when they're
Yeah,
about to
remember
go back in time.
Hulk was in Wakanda
Yeah,
in like
in
the
the
trailer.
trailer.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah,
they're constantly messing with us, and good.
Yeah.
I'm glad they
Yeah.
do.
But
no,
from-
please do. Yeah,
I was very surprised, like from the trailer, I'm trying to figure out like, okay, how is this movie going to work together? Like even the thing, I remember a lot of discussion when the trailer first came out of like, why would Doctor Strange agree to do this? And then
Yeah.
obviously it plays out complete. It like it's a few different lines of dialogue, but it makes a huge difference. Wong says yes in the trailer, he says no, and Doctor Strange
Right.
is like, we're gonna do it anyways, like which
Yeah.
is like that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
But then he says yes, and he's like, all right. And then the way that everything played out, like the first fight too with like Electro and like him with the black suit, there's just so many great nods. Like I have never seen a such a fan service heavy MCU film that did not feel campy really ever at all. Like it somehow was this fantastical superhero movie with more crazy villains and stuff that we in interdimensional travel and the whole mirror stuff, but it didn't it still felt like kind of grounded and like emotional where we were invested in the characters. The way they humanized the villains was fantastic. Like I am still blown away at like the turn with Mary Jane, or I'm sorry, with Aunt May and her saying the great power thing, right? And like
Yeah.
I've been tricked this whole time. I thought we just skipped the origin story and
Yeah.
just jumped into Spider-Man. When in reality, all three of these films are the origin story.
Yeah.
Like, holy crap, dude! It's so good.
Yeah, I think that well, you know what? There was something that was good in here that let's just go to Katie's friend, the con guy.
Yeah. What's
I
up?
think
Sorry, I
this
didn't say hi earlier.
ending splits Tom Holland Spider-Man away from the Avengers. So I have a thought on this in that they're setting themselves up where should they choose to do that, it is very easy now to make Sony only Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, or honestly anybody playing Spider-Man. Because to have ended the partnership between Sony and Marvel Studios after Far From Home, that would have made this very complicated. Sure, I'm sure there's a way you could have kind of figured some of this out, but being able to have Doctor Strange and deal with the multiverse, I think this had to be. But now it's like, well, people don't remember him. So you can really set off in any direction you want to. I do think that as much as I like some of the previous 5 films, these movies are much better in the sense that him being a part of the MCU, I think, is a really important part of why these work and why people like the Tom Holland Spider-Man. And remember, like he's been Spider-Man in 10 movies. He didn't star in 10 movies, but we've really gotten to see so much more of him than we have of either of the other two.
Also, he was still like everybody in the Avengers would still know who Spider-Man was. They just wouldn't know that he was Peter Parker.
That's what I was talking to my wife about that afterwards. They know who Spider-Man is, but they don't know that who's under the mask. So there's no reason he doesn't like take off the mask like, "Hi, my name's Peter."
You know? I did also find it interesting that they made a point to note that Nick Fury is off world.
Yeah.
And Doctor Strange's spell was only concentrated on people on the planet. So Nick still knows who Peter is, which I think is going to be important.
Would that mean that like Guardians of the Galaxy and Captain Marvel do also?
I don't know if Captain Marvel knows, but I think Peter Quill knows.
But like Peter
Well-
Quill would
About
still know,
Peter.
right?
Yeah, I mean,
Theoretically, the spell
in-
wouldn't have affected them.
in Endgame, you know, she Carol says, "Hi, Peter Parker." You know,
Oh,
so
yeah.
so yeah. So I'm inclined to think it's possible, but Kangai is wondering if the next film would be Sinister Six. I think that Sinister Six is its own film, and that's not the next Spider-Man movie. But all of these things are very possible, and you know we're going to have a few years to theorize on really a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
And Daniel Drew just points out he has a complete secret identity now. You know,
True.
I mean, and that's the thing. As sad and heartbreaking as it is to lose Aunt May, it's kind of the only way that this would work, where no one knows who he is anymore.
Yeah.
If Aunt May's still around, I think that you know that definitely makes it a lot more complicated. You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think that. I don't know. I think that there are so many questions about what's next, but we'll sort of focus back on what's actually in this movie, because you know there's so many different ways to go down, and you know we're already we're already 45 minutes in, so I
Well,
don't want to.
also
Go ahead.
to echo off of that though, like I was gonna say that the end of it, it kind of it the reason why I actually think it was like beautifully sad or beautifully tragic was that, you know, you always see Peter trying to do what he thinks is best and always trying to help people, and it always goes wrong, no matter
Yeah.
what. He tries to be the best person, and up until this point in his franchise, he hasn't had a lot of problems happen. Like, you know, he didn't see the death of any of his family. He didn't lose the girl, all that stuff, which happened early on in the other films. And then to have it be like, I don't want people to forget me. And then the catch is that I guess that's going to happen anyway. And it just
Yeah.
kind of was like, ooh, like no matter what Peter tries, it's always going to backfire on him. And it made it more sad, but like very powerful at the same time. Because you were
Yeah,
like, it
here's
can't-
here's an interaction from earlier in the chat. So Ivan Soto says this was one of the best movies, Spider-Man or otherwise, I've seen in a long time. But it's also one of the most heartbreaking movies. How does this happen? Daniel Drew sums it up perfectly, because it's Spider-Man. Because it's always heartbreaking. You know, the story of your uncle died, the guy ran right by you. All you had to do was throw up an elbow. And the
Yeah.
reason that and this is from the comic books because it's not as clear in the movie. The reason why Gwen Stacy dying is so heartbreaking is because she doesn't die because the Green Goblin threw her. She dies because Peter tries to stop her with his webs and breaks her neck. That is just next level dark.
Yeah.
And you know, to just have the fact that he can still be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man ever is, oh, you know, I mean, and there's so many other things to deal with. You know, I mean, his parents dying, you know, in that incarnation, you know, in the comics they brought them back only to kill them again, which because again, hashtag because it's Spider-Man. You know, we were talking a little bit about some of the fan service in this movie, and I wanted to know if any of you think that there's a chance that something very specific, that the reaction that the diehard DC fans had to the Snyder Cut, not the casual fans, what they loved about it was just like, it's like almost all fan service. It's 4 hours of fan service.
No,
Really.
but I mean, here's the thing. I think to all your points, it's like this is a movie that we talked before about this idea of working big and small. That has always been Spider-Man, right? I mean, Spider-Man really for years, Spider-Man, X-Men were the hearts of the Marvel universe in comic books. I'm sitting there as a 12-year-old in Delaware, like reading this stuff and finding myself so connected to Peter Parker, so connected to what it meant to be an X-Man, like and so that idea of is it fan service? Like, yeah, you got the murderer's row of villains here, but the truth is, like, the moments that really land are the smaller moments. Like as great as some of those action scenes were, and it, Nate, you brought up like the staging of it, like that opening scene of him sneaking back into his apartment, and it's done as looks like with no cuts. Obviously,
Oh
they're
my
cuts that they
god,
hid.
it was
That
so
it
good.
pulls us in, and really what they did with this is, yes, they gave us the greatest hits. They really did. But really they also like it's funny. Everyone hated when was it One More Day came out? Or Brand New Day. What was
Yeah,
the
There's
one more day.
One More
That
Day.
yeah,
And
the
yet
Mephisto one.
brand new day was the
this
yeah, but one more day,
this
yeah.
is that. And I mean, I thought that was a really good run. I
Yep.
actually defended that back in the day. And really the heart and the emotion here, it's really what Marvel fans connected to. And you're right. I could hear people crying. I mean, I will take off my glasses because they're fogging up for my own tears. And I'm still trying to convince my 13 and 10-year-old that their dad is, machismo. It's why the beard's so damn long. But the truth is, like, it
Yeah.
broke my heart, and it broke the heart of everyone in that theater. So yeah, no, I think maybe they came for the fan service, but that's not the thing they left with. I think they
No,
left
but
with
I
the thing
think
that made it work.
that the sort of celebrating that, but ultimately you still have to make a great movie, and you're
And it was
talking
organic.
about
Yeah,
some of the heart in this movie, and
It had so
you
much
know,
heart, I think, and
my
that
yeah.
my wife like gulping back tears when Aunt May died, and in a little bit
Oh
I will
yeah,
talk
that's right.
about my own emotions, but we're not so much there yet. I do think
Not
that
ready to share.
an important distinction is to focus on the fact that we do have a difference of opinion here on today's panel as it relates to the previous Spider-Men. And here, the what I have long thought is that Andrew Garfield was perfect as Peter Parker. I thought Toby was a good Spider-Man, but the biggest reason why I liked Andrew Garfield as Peter Parker was because he was so good with Gwen. The scenes with them together, you could take all the Spider-Man superheroing out of those movies, and if it was just the Peter and Gwen like meet cute and it's like the rom-com Peter and
Oh,
Gwen
you
movie.
did it.
Yeah, that's my favorite part because you get that character development. I don't think I didn't think he was bad as Spider-Man. I just thought he was so good as Peter. And I I
You can
think
understand that.
that the first Andrew Garfield movie was a better origin story than the Sam Raimi origin story. And because I know the answer, Katie, what do you think?
Well, so I was always in this in the it's a very common, I believe, I don't remember which one of our viewers said it, but it's been a long time thing where when asked who my favorite Spider-Man was, I would say that Tobey Maguire was my favorite Peter and that Andrew Garfield was my favorite Spider-Man and then Tom Holland was my favorite both until I did my rewatch. When I did my rewatch, I could not get on board with Tobey Maguire. It just his acting to me, it just was very like in a way I get it. He's nerdy. He did play a very believable nerdy side of Peter Parker.
And
I
let
will
me just
not argue
interject.
that.
Let's just talk about Tobey Maguire in 1 and 2. Let's not talk about Tobey Maguire in
Sounds good.
3
Oh yeah,
because
Yeah. Yeah.
there's so many, and it's not because he's a bad actor. That's a script problem, that's a directing problem,
It's an
that's
everything problem. Let's
that's
be real.
putting too many characters into that movie.
that's an
Uh
emo problem.
God,
Yeah.
God bless Bryce Dallas Howard, but she should not have been in that movie. The
Um.
Gwen shouldn't have been in that movie. It was just you're trying too much. There's too many things. So, but anyway, so Toby in 1 and 2. Sorry.
Yeah, and he of course when people say he portrayed the more geeky nerdy kid than Andrew Garfield did. I do agree with that, but I feel like believability wise, I just believed Andrew Garfield more as being able to be both characters. Also like I definitely did not believe Tobey Maguire as Spider-Man. I'm opposite with Christian on that. I was just like, nope, I don't get it. I don't see it. But I'm with you on the character development. the story between Gwen and Peter, I mean, obviously, I love Gwen, so obviously I have a bias, and I will admit it. Um, that's what got me in. I told someone this at work today. I'm like, if you took out the villains, the final terrible portrayal of the villains at the end of the movie, it would be a great movie. The issue is the villains were like an afterthought, in my opinion, and that's why the second one didn't work to me. But when I
You're
rewatched
talking
them,
about the second Andrew Garfield, right?
yes, Amazing
Yeah,
Spider-Man
yeah.
2, yeah. Um,
Yeah.
but as much as I didn't like Toby in the first three films, or first two films, my bad, I feel like they all outacted their previous time portraying their characters in this movie. So they all acted
Yeah.
better at their characters than they originally did. And I like that they also played off of, Andrew Garfield being like, I'm the lame one, like playing off of the fact
Yeah.
that the fans hated him so much and being able to make fun of it and give you that charm, and kind of made him feel more like Peter Parker to me, with the way
Yeah.
that he interacted in the new one.
I thought
Um,
that was a great choice to sort
yeah.
of, have that. You have the other two Peters trying to sort of pick him up. That is a very Peter Parker thing, to really
Yeah.
feel that way about yourself. Just he was lower than the other two. And look, I think Andrew Garfield has been in so many things in the last few years, and I think just I mean, obviously they're all better actors than the first time they played Spider-Man, including Tom Holland. I mean, it's just the experience. You're just, and I think having Toby as this older Peter was great. But you mentioned Gwen, and I want to talk. I want to throw some of this to Nate in a second. But you talked about Gwen. This is a great opportunity. I wanted to let people know just how our friend Katie went to the theater, and you
Oh,
can
wow.
find her on Instagram, Katie underscore Christine, KT underscore Christine. And just for a better look at the Gwen, and it's interesting about Gwen, the Spider Gwen outfit, of course, it really lends itself to adding a mask to it, like a face mask, which before anybody in any other parts of the country say anything, in California, you want to watch a movie, you're going to wear a mask unless you're eating popcorn, which means I wear a mask for about 4 minutes during a 2-hour and 30-minute movie because free refills. What am I going to do?
Yeah.
But yeah, I wanted to show those off, and that Katie, obviously, the costuming is important to you, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But Nate, so I know you have a different view on Andrew Garfield, so I want you to start from your just long held standpoint.
I
And
feel bad now.
if this movie did anything to sort of change the way you thought of him,
I
the answer does
definitely,
not need to be yes. By the way, it's
I
absolutely
definitely enjoyed Andrew in this movie a lot more
yeah.
than I expected to. I didn't see the first one, but I saw the second one, the one that had Jamie Foxx in it. And
The one with the lizard is
Yeah.
definitely the better of the two.
I didn't watch
Thank
that
you.
one.
Yeah.
I honestly, a lot. I mean, I will not lie. A lot of it is just bias and nostalgia for me. Like Spider-Man was the first like real comic movie that really meant a lot to me. Like I really personally was really invested in Spider-Man, and so Toby for me is Peter Parker, and I do think Tom Holland does a good job, but I think both him and Andrew are just like too hot to be Peter Parker. Like they're just way too good looking. They're just like incredibly good looking.
But it's
And
different universes, so in other universes, why can't Peter Parker be hot? Just
yeah,
saying.
no, he absolutely can be, but like I feel like, come on, man, like give the nerdy guys, give him something. Like that's Peter's whole thing is like he was this nerdy, like weak kid who was just a brainiac, and then now all of a sudden he's got this like brawn, and he has to like deal with this power. But I digress. I really liked Andrew in the movie. I liked that they played around with the idea that like people didn't like his Spider-Man as much with like his self-confidence and stuff. I thought their interaction with the I love you guys, and they're like, Yeah, like that was
Yeah.
so
Oh,
good.
the fact that they didn't
Yeah.
say it back is
Yeah.
the most Peter Parker thing we could have gotten.
Spider-Man
Like, well,
3. Okay.
I've just
whoa,
I've
bro.
I've always been a Mary Jane guy, and I feel really bad, but I've never really cared for Gwen Stacy.
I,
So
I'm with you in the
kind of
respect
lost me
that
in that.
my era of Spider-Man in the comic books was right when when Mary Jane came back into his life and he proposed, and of course she says no. But then she comes back around and they get married. I actually love married Peter and MJ. I think that is a great dynamic that I don't think that Mephisto needs to get involved and undo anybody's marriage. I'm sure that Matt Murdock can handle divorces as well, or have Foggy do it. That's fine. But in any case, I really was impressed by what we saw of Andrew Garfield in this movie. I am admittedly an apologist for the Amazing Spider-Man 2. I know all the faults of it, and they're similar to the faults in Spider-Man 3, the Tobey Maguire one. Putting too many extra characters in there, trying to set up movies that you ultimately didn't make. I mean, Felicity Jones is in that movie as Norman Osborn's secretary. She's Felicia Hardy. It's just like, okay, but we never saw Black Cat in a movie. So, it's like
I
all
didn't
these
even
things that just you don't get to. And so to look back at it, you're like, why didn't you just tell the story of Electro? Why didn't you just tell the story? The Gwen dying is enough. You didn't need all
Yeah.
that. You didn't need
Oh,
BJ
yeah.
Novak as Alistair Smythe one day inventing the Spider Slayer. It was just like, this is like if you had done a Spider-Man series, Amazing Spider-Man 2 should have been like a whole season, and then you're sort of
Right.
laying all these things along the way. But it was a 2.5 hour
I mean,
movie.
that's why I think it is definitely hard to compare those movies to the MCU
Yeah.
Spider-Man movies, because even though the first Spider-Man there isn't really any crossover, like it still kind of lends itself to this greater world, and it kind of gives context to a lot of situations, and it allows characters to briefly appear that have continuity somewhere else, so they're not just like seemingly random. And those movies that came before, obviously it was years before, didn't have that luxury of them. They were literally just trying to build that whole world themselves. Like
Yeah.
I really love that we not only got all of these characters back, but for me again, like for me, Spider-Man is Green Goblin, like Norman Osborn, and
Yeah.
we talked about it already, but still, like William Dafoe is incredible, but also just being able to get our Tom Holland Spider-Man to have this fight with Norman, even though he doesn't really exist in our universe, like because that to me that's like it's like there's certain rite of passages to being Spider-Man, and like besting Norman Osborn I feel like is on that list, and
Yeah.
it just felt like really cool to see him do that. Having him mirror the Civil War pose with him like trying to impale
Yeah.
him with the glider on the Captain America shield, I thought was fantastic. A lot of great parallels in this film.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, absolutely. Go ahead, Eric. Yeah, and I want to the point that you're bringing up. Absolutely mention that, but I also do want to get your thoughts on Andrew Garfield. And we were talking about how Katie went to the movie. Eric wanted to share with us so that we could all see how he went to the movie. And thank you so much for sending that to us. Best of all, that you kept your glasses on.
The angle added a little bit of weight, I have to admit.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry, what was the point you wanted to make? But
Is that the Amazing Spider-Man costume? I think, right?
It's whatever you find at Walmart at
That's
midnight on a Tuesday.
that's the Japanese Spider-Man.
Hollywood Boulevard.
You'll then turn into you'll then turn into a Shogun warrior or possibly a Gobot.
Also, by the way, if I was walking down the street with two young boys while wearing that outfit, I would no longer have those kids.
No,
So they would be taken, and I would hope so. I want the police to take children away from a man wearing that. So, yeah, Amazing Spider-Man 2. I've talked about, I think before with you, Christian. Like I kind of hate that film. I
Yeah,
don't
and
know
then
what
just I'll
Garfield
just
does.
interject very
Yeah.
quickly. It's my Batman versus Superman. I know people who love that movie, and I can't wrap my head around it. I know I shouldn't like that movie as much as
What
I
is the
do,
name?
but
I don't like strawberries. We all
I
have our
just
thing.
there yeah at the core it's because of Peter and Gwen. But anyway, you
Yeah,
hate that movie.
I hate that movie, but I don't hate Andrew Garfield. I remember when I saw Amazing Spider-Man 1, I was thinking like, Andrew Garfield, I think maybe is a better Peter Parker. And so I had no issues with him, but it was everything else. It talked about how terrible Jamie Foxx is in that, and there's no excuse for that for
Yeah,
Jamie
not in this,
to
but
be
in
bad.
that in
Oh,
that.
yeah,
Yeah,
no, this was great.
yeah,
But even by the way, the shout out to the Rhino. When you heard that somewhere, I was very happy.
yeah.
Dude, I fought
Yeah,
a Russian guy in like a metal rhinoceros. Like I'm like,
yeah. That
that
was
made me
fantastic.
so happy that they gave a shout out to the single worst part of that not very good film, in my humble opinion. But I thought Andrew Garfield and him was great. What really too, and what we've talked about, there was such a great chemistry between those three actors. That was the thing. I actually
Are
maybe it's a
you're
whole thing.
talking about Toby, Andrew, and
Toby,
Tom?
Andrew, yeah.
Yeah, I
Yes.
agree.
Yeah, I mean, there was something about how when they were on the screen together, they weren't trying to like one up each other. And part of this is the writing was so smart about how they were used. And it wasn't afraid to find humor, sometimes goofy humor in their interactions, but then also like some real pathos too. And really they were saying a lot of lines that a lot of guys who look like me have probably said in coffee shops all around this country after
Oh,
seeing one of these
look,
movies.
when we saw the first Sam Raimi Spider-Man
Mhm.
and they decided that his webs came out of him, we all wanted to know what Tom Holland asked.
Oh, of
Did
course.
they come out of anywhere else? And he's like, no, just my
Yeah.
wrists.
Great question.
That stuff
Perfectly
was
answered.
great. Andrew Garfield cracking his back,
Yeah.
just a
Oh, yeah,
lot
yeah.
of that stuff. Yeah, I definitely I'm up for the Hope and Crosby style road picture with Toby and Andrew, and they can play different characters.
Sure.
They don't they like it's too expensive to put them both as Peter Parker in a movie. I just want to watch them together again.
Right.
And yeah, but
Even
anyway,
even
sorry, I
give
wanted to let you finish up your thought. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, it's all good. I mean, even give Taika Waititi a couple of bucks to make some 5-minute shorts with them, like they did with Thor. Like
I love that idea. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you can afford
Or
that.
Deadpool.
Or
But
right. Oh god, those guys hanging out with Deadpool would be the greatest movie
I
of all
want that
time.
so much.
Yeah.
So much.
And it's the idea too of like a Spider-Man for every season, like one in the 40s, one in his 30s, one in his 20s was great, and really
Yeah.
added so much to the storytelling. But one thing I realized in watching this, so Statue of Liberty has that shield, Captain America's shield, and they refer to that in Hawkeye.
Yeah.
Which I was like, I was like, oh my god! I mean, talk about
Well, when
brilliant
Peter's
timing.
in this movie, and I caught it the second time, when Peter's washing the green paint out of, he's trying to wash the green paint out of his suit.
Yeah.
He's listening to talk radio, first time, long time. And there's somebody talking about like the Statue of Liberty was good enough. Why are they adding this to it? So yeah, and then there was the reference to that as well in Hawkeye.
Yelena
And then
has
of
that
course,
line, right?
conveniently,
Early when he's swinging
go
with
ahead.
Mary Jane in the start, he flies past a Captain America the musical billboard.
Oh, I
Roger.
did. I actually didn't
Rogers the
catch that.
musical.
You're right.
That's
Oh my god.
Rogers
fantastic.
musical,
I
yeah.
love that. But then, of course, the shield is pretty much removed from the Statue of Liberty, which I think is
Yeah.
that's a sort of a nice touch. So the point that I wanted to make sure I got to in regards to Andrew Garfield is I would assume that there was probably some level there. I would assume there's apprehension when he's first asked, would you think about being, Peter Parker again in a movie? And then I would think that whether it was a meeting with Kevin Feige or actually getting to read the pages that are his scenes, however this happens, I think seeing what he gets to do as this Peter, the doubt and just sort of his speech about how he stopped pulling his punches,
Yeah.
and just that idea of like because the last time we saw him at the end of Amazing Spider-Man 2 was right after Gwen died. And just like, yeah, to know that like, oh, it got really dark and really rough for him. And we get a little bit of that with the Toby version as well. But for me, we were talking earlier. I believe I cried 3 times in Endgame. Only once in this, and I will tell everyone now when that was. And it was building when MJ is falling and Tom's about. I have to refer to them as the actor names. There's no other way to do it. And Tom's about to get her, and then he's not. And that look on Andrew Garfield's face, he said earlier about how he'd had so many times to think about what he could have done differently. And so he dives and he does what he couldn't do for Gwen. So that's not it. That's like very emotional, so well played. And so he does it, and so then he starts to cry, and that starts to get to me. But it's more, he says, "Are you okay?" And she says, "Yeah." "Are you okay?" And it's that look on his face where it's like, yeah, that's the moment. And like, I was trying to describe to my wife that that's what made me cry. And like, I'm like, wait, I'm talking about it and I'm getting choked up about it. The fact that he's able to sort of convey that, I mean, it's really, he doesn't say much. It's all on his face. And yes, I'm really zeroing in on this specific aspect of what happened, but just because it really resounded with me so much. And I was just like, I can't believe this is what's going on, And then I'm like, am I a monster because I didn't cry for Aunt May, But it's just such depth to the character because look, even if he's not people's favorite Spider-Man, this is still Peter Parker. This is an important part of who he is. Gwen Stacy dying is a huge part of many iterations of Peter Parker. So I don't know. I mean, that really got to me, and I can see, Andrew Garfield maybe is now a little bit more of an actor with a capital A. I don't know. Maybe
I mean,
that's how he
Oscar
handles himself.
nominated, so
Yeah. No, exactly. So I think that it's like, and I think it's just like, don't worry, we're gonna give you stuff to do. What did you think, Katie? We're in the small contingent, not just on this show. We're in the pro Andrew Garfield Spider-Man contingent here. What did you think about sort of what he got to do, but then also that moment where he saves MJ?
that's not the first part I cried. I did cry like crazy when Aunt May died. Um, just like I did in
Yeah, we've
another,
established that I'm a monster. We can move on.
just like
You're not
another.
broken like Christian.
I don't know who in chat or who of you guys have played the game. I don't want to spoil the game for people, but I cried during the game too. Um, and
Oh,
so I'm
the Spider-Man game.
the Spider-Man
Yeah, okay.
PS4 game.
Not the Michael Doug.
Huh?
No, the Michael Douglas movie, the game, yeah, and
Yeah.
not the sitcom, the game either. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's
So-
keep it all. Yeah.
I
Or the
cried
reboot.
then, but honestly, I wanted to cry more when Aunt May died, but I wasn't able to for some reason. It just was not happening, and I was like, "What is wrong with me? Like, why am I not crying more?" And then, yeah, that face, that look on Andrew Garfield's face when he saved MJ, which I predicted he was going to do. I predicted he was going to save her and get his redemption, but seeing it on screen absolutely broke me. I lost it. To see that look of, I did it. I did what I couldn't do in my own universe and saved her. And every single person I've talked to who said they only cried once, Christian, cried in that same part. So you're not alone. I have other people that were like, I cried in that same part, and I'm like, yeah. And it was just like, not only did you provide closure for your character and what people thought of your character and the people who hated your movie because of this, you provided the fans closure, you provided yourself closure. It was just a beautiful moment. But that is not the only time I cried, but that one did get me really hard because that moment, it was just like
Yeah.
a small beat, and it was so powerful. So
By the way, I don't know that I ever cried in a movie before I had kids. Like literally my whole life. I don't know. It's just I don't know what it
You're a
did to me.
Mets fan. Mets fans,
Oh
like, we suffer and we bleed and we
no.
cry. Like, what happened
No,
to
no, no,
you?
no. You can't let them see you cry. It's
That's
weird,
all let them you do, Mets fan. That's all I do.
Yeah. No, you
I'm
just have
crying
to do
right
what I
now thinking about next season.
Yeah, well, you just have to, when you've spent multiple thousands of dollars for a trip to New York and the Kansas City Royals are celebrating their World Series win on the field, you look away. You don't watch. You put your head down and you walk to the 7 train. Anyway, um
I mean, I
but
almost started crying just thinking about it again. So
yeah, which by the way, I did think of you, Eric, when MJ said I think the Mets are going to go all the way this year. I'm like, well, if MJ said it, uh
My
but
own
that
son
but
laughed at me at that
but
part.
but this is like 2027 or something. So unfortunately, it's not 2022.
It's not science
Anyway,
fiction.
you're Nate. You're not the first person that I've talked to who wasn't particularly a fan of the Andrew Garfield movies, but saw this and felt like they really did a good job kind of giving him sort of revisiting the character. To an extent it's what they did with Electro, it's what they did with Norman Osborn. They're sort of like, yeah, this stuff happened, but we're kind of updating it a little bit, we're kind of giving them more to do. And I don't look at it as like revisionist. I just think it's like they've sort of updated some of what we'd seen before. Do you think that's a fair assessment, Nate?
Absolutely, and I think one of the things that I think is really cool about this film is that you have Flash Thompson and his book Flashpoint that he wrote, but I think
Which, by the way, called Flashpoint, should not be lost on any of us.
exactly, and that too is like, not only is that a cool Easter egg reference, but it really does kind of summarize this film. Kind of like it is kind of a little mini Flashpoint just for Spider-Man to kind of reset his universe. And like narratively to be able to pull that off and have it be very meaningful. Like so being not a fan of Amazing Spider-Man, I was not really that moved by that scene. I did think it was very well performed, but I,
Sure.
was not that emotional. Also, especially too, I have to say, I, again, damn you, Marvel trailers, because that scene's in the trailer. So I already knew that she was going to fall, and I knew that she was not going to die. So that also took some of the tension away. But I think the moment that really got me was in the end, which was him seeing Ned and MJ and kind of, him having that letter that he wants to give to them and not, him internalizing. I've not been crazy about Tom Holland. I think he's kind of generic and just really good looking. But in that last scene, he did a lot of very good, eye face acting of him going through the process of like, maybe it's better for them if they continue to not know me. If I don't, like, there's a reason why we had to go through all of this in order to get them to forget me and fix all this stuff. So maybe I don't go back into that. And that I think is very powerful. It takes a movie that is kind of fun and at sometimes heavy, but also makes it a very philosophical thing about being a hero, which I think is right in the time that we're at in the MCU is a great time to start examining that. Like, what does it mean to be a hero to the people around you, to yourself and your identity? And especially with Peter being such a young guy, we've seen him growing up, he's going off to college and growing, getting out of high school. I think they positioned him not only in a great space within the MCU to do stuff, but also as a character to grow and still like do more cool stuff, becoming the legend that is Spider-Man or whatever.
Yeah, what's
Yeah.
interesting is like
Go
everyone's
ahead,
going to forget about Peter, but he forget about Peter. That's the
Right.
thing that really got me at the end, right? It's like what one of them even said, "Oh, you're still trying to do both," and the realization like he doesn't get to be Peter anymore. It's not just because people forgot about Peter. I mean, that's the crazy part. He has to forget about Peter, and part of that is then allowing them to live their lives, which was such that sacrifice. And that's the part that, I know it's an obvious answer, but that's the part that got me the most is, him not being able to say a word to them. They're going on with their lives. They've already forgotten him. He hasn't forgotten them. It's like, oh, that got me. Like, that was a moment I'm glad we were sticking around for the, mid-credit and end-credit scene, because I didn't want to get up. Like, I needed
Yeah,
a
well,
moment with that.
I think it's a testament to what Doctor Strange was able to do. Although I would put forth here in on the record in front of everyone that Doctor Strange could make people forget about Peter Parker, but he could never make us forget about Dre. So what I did want to talk about was a little bit more with Doctor Strange and the idea that you want to talk about the misleading trailers, Nate. They made it look like he was this like bumbling wizard from, like Samantha from Bewitched. And he's just like, well, I just cast the wrong spell because I'm stupid. And and I was like, I'm like, what did they do to Doctor Strange? And then it's like, oh no, this actually works. And I think the interestingly named in the chat, probably about an hour ago, Haywood Wong gave a shout out to Wong, who we find out is the Sorcerer Supreme. And as Steven points out on a technicality, because I was gone for 5 years, it's like that makes perfect sense because someone does need to be Sorcerer Supreme. And interesting that he is now, because that wasn't even that was not even like hinted at in Shang-Chi,
It makes more sense now though. Like now that they revealed that Wong is Sorcerer Supreme, or like that makes sense why it's Wong in the meeting with
which
Katie
it also shows how smart he is, because he's the he the last thing he says to Steven is, I don't want any part of this, because he's like, this is not going to be my problem. So yeah, I think that I think it's very consistent for Stephen Strange. I think in this movie, he did seem a little bit more likable in the Avengers movies, in Infinity War and Endgame, but this is fairly consistent with that. And it is interesting, we did mention it, that the end credits is really it's a glorified trailer, but that does look awesome. And Nate, it really looks like we're seeing in that end credit sequence, we're seeing the Stephen Strange from the What If episode, which still stands out for me as the best What If episode.
I'm not 100% convinced that it's him. It could be him.
Yeah.
But I don't initially I was like, oh my god, but now I don't know. I rewatched it online, and
well, it has a shot of Stephen Strange getting married, which in that What If we saw many times. So it's very interesting to see.
Well, he's not getting married, he's in the audience, and the girl is getting married.
You're right.
The girl that he
Christine,
was friend zoned with, I forget her name.
Yeah,
friend zoned with, and then in What If, they're like kind of like star-crossed lovers. So I honestly, the thing that I don't know if I missed it and it was revealed before, but I did not know that America Chavez was going to be in
Doctor Strange.
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that either, actually.
Well, she's in that trailer, and I lost my mind. I was like, is that? And then you see the star, and it all makes sense because she is very much like a multi-dimensional character. It's part of her origin and stuff. But this just makes me more excited for Young Avengers, because this is just another one to add to the list. Ooh.
Yeah. It's it was brought up in the chat. Our friend Jason Blair, who literally popped in after getting home from seeing the movie tonight, he hadn't seen the Venom movies, and I think that after Let There Be Carnage, I think the expectation was that Venom was going to really factor into this story, and we talked about some theories for some of the things that might be. So I don't think there was room for him in this movie, but seeing that in the mid-credit scene, it is the reminder of like, oh yeah, I thought they were going to do something with that. And it's like they do something. And by the way, shout out to Danny Rojas as the bartender. And I don't know the actor's name, but from Ted Lasso, Danny Rojas, aka Football is Life, was there as a bartender. So that was fantastic. And just, Tom Hardy basically just there to leave behind a little Venom ooze. But, for him to go back to his universe without interacting with Spider-Man. I'm like, oh, I mean, I guess he can cross over again. So it's again, it would have made this movie a mess, but that was like a little like, oh yeah, I had kind of hoped for that. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. Eric, should I have not have had that feeling once I saw Venom? I'm like, oh yeah, why was he not in this damn movie?
It's funny. He shows up, and the tone of his performance is really different. I felt than you see all these other actors in this world and this tone, and I feel like even with all their differing styles, they still felt part of that same universe, part of the bud. But he shows up, and all of a sudden he's like doing that thing Tom Hardy feels the need to do, and Tom Hardy's a wonderful actor. I feel like he needs directors who would be who kind of like the way Al Pacino or Chris Walken needs a director to be like, oh, bring it back. No, we got that take. It was beautiful. Now bring it back half. You did 10, let's do 5. And I feel like he needs that because otherwise he does shtick. And I like the scene. It was funny. But he just feels, I am glad that he was kind of off to the side here. But that one image of the little bit of ooze I thought was great. I mean, that's like, okay, cool. That's all I needed from it.
Yeah,
but not the secret of the ooze, because that's
well, I already learned the secret of the ooze.
I hadn't seen
always
the
taught us
Venom
that.
movies, but
Neither have I.
Spider-Man isn't in those movies, right?
No.
Spider-Man is not in those movies.
So
there's little
Yeah.
Easter eggs.
How does
like
he know that Peter Parker is Spider-Man?
At the end of Carnage.
the end of Carnage, he pops over to the MCU.
The credit
and sees him on
sequence,
TV. Yeah.
The end credit sequence is basically,
Okay.
he sees it on
So that's
TV.
why the expectation was that he would be in this movie, because it was clear that the Venom movies were not in the MCU.
Yeah.
And we didn't know if there was a Spider-Man there. They never dealt with it. And then he crossed over and he sees J. Jonah Jameson revealing Peter Parker as Spider-Man. So they're intrigued, and it sort of asks questions that, oh, does Venom recognize him? Is the Topher Grace Venom part of the same collective, just in a different, you know what I mean? There was like a lot of moving pieces. It was like the meme of Charlie Day from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, trying to connect all the dots together
on the board.
And, but then this movie was just like, you could just knock down the whole board because none of that mattered. We didn't even go there. So, but yeah. So there's a lot to focus on, but I don't want this to go past 90 minutes, and I will let people know. I will assemble another panel Monday, coming up on the 20th of December, Monday at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Our pal Will Sterling, Jeff Williams Jr., who was up in the Great White North, was not able to join us tonight, but so you'll be able to find a little bit more Spider-Man talk on Monday. And then, of course, Wednesday, early in the morning, 1 a.m., we're doing our Hawkeye season finale wrap-up. We're going to watch it 1 a.m. Pacific. Yeah, that's 4 a.m. Eastern. We know. And for Michael Shirley, that's 3 a.m. where he lives. So look out. But we'll get right to it then. But anyway, that's in the future. And looks like Eric is joined by a guest.
What do you say?
Hello.
What did you think of Spidey?
Yeah, come here.
Periodic table Marvel. Yay.
What do you think of Spider-Man?
Oh, good. Definitely.
Thumbs up.
I read them a lot of what if references. Like when the room exploded with Doctor Strange, you can see the what if space and also Loki space.
Yeah, see, we were thinking about that, and it's when and we're not getting Doctor Strange until May, so we're gonna have to wait half a year basically. But Nate, you and I will either be excited that they incorporated it, or it'll still be cool. I mean, having this dark version of Stephen Strange is great, but if it is actually that one from the what if,
my one reason why I don't think it's going to be the same one is how they ended that. Like, he's there watching, because if we're pulling that same dark Strange Supreme, whatever, right?
Yeah.
he's supposed to be watching the Killmonger and Ultron things, right? So if he's not doing that, then are those guys going to be the next threat in the MCU because
Yeah,
he brought
that's
them
fair.
with him or something? Like
I don't
there's a whole lot of continuity stuff that then would have to
Yeah.
be explained from that.
What were you gonna say, Katie?
I don't necessarily think that it's going to be the same story from What If that Doctor Strange is doing if he is Strange Supreme. I think it's just like a hey, we teased that Dark Strange is a thing. This is going to be our take on it. But maybe, who knows? They fooled us once with this trailer, so they probably have a trick or two in this next one.
True. Yeah,
But
I
great
forgot
what I
the
was
number one rule: don't trust the Marvel trailers.
yeah, and the thing that made me think it was led to What If was because we did have Spidey with Doctor Strange's cape
Right.
in this movie as well, which was also in What If in the Zombie Hunter episode.
That's true.
So they did a couple like What If
I-
Easter eggs, I guess.
By the way, you're reminding me that I did enjoy when Ned said, "Thank you, Mr. Cape." I don't want to get too bogged down in some of the theories and things, because we will wind things up in a moment. But Jason Blair says one thing that he thinks is a loophole. Happy remembers Spider-Man, but not Peter Parker. So MJ and Ned should remember that they've met Spider-Man. Seems like that's Peter's easy into getting back into MJ and Ned's life. Yeah, I mean, it could be something where Spider-Man, we were saying that earlier, Spider-Man can get back in with some of these people that he knows, but we're not sure whether or not
The thing is like
Peter's going to be able to do that.
you have to remember in that scenario, right? So he goes in his suit and he's like, "Hey guys, remember we hung out?" And they're like, "Yeah, we saw you that one time." And then he takes his mask off and he's like, "I'm Peter Parker." And they go, "Who?" Right?
Yeah.
Because
Right.
that only means something because you're assuming that they know who Peter Parker is, but they don't know. It's not that they don't know that he's Spider-Man. They don't know who he is at all. Guy doesn't exist essentially.
Yeah.
So it's not really a loophole.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a whole lore designed around a man who does not exist. His name is Michael Knight. He was played by David Hasselhoff, a man who does not exist, but he had a talking car. So if Peter Parker gets a talking car, and there is a
Japanese
Spider-Mobile.
Spider-Man.
There is a Spider-Mobile in the 70s that did end up at the bottom of the East River because I think Stan hated it. I think it was one of those, but it was like, but we were trying to sell toys, So in any case, look, I think it's hard to really take it all in. And, even though I've seen it twice now, I've long felt like Spider-Man 2, the one with Doc Ock, was my favorite of these. It's really hard to top this right now. I'm going to need to think about it objectively. Wherever it ranks, this was great. This was everything I wanted as a kid reading Spider-Man, how much I loved the character. And I enjoyed a lot of things about all the movies that came before, getting to see the three of them swinging together with their masks on, the bantering of the three Peters as well. But really the three of them in action together, that was really all I needed.
The fight choreography was excellent in this film.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. So I'll see if anybody has any final thoughts they want to share, and then we'll let everybody know where we can find you, and I'll remind everyone again when you can find this show again. Eric, Connor returns.
Yeah, one thing I thought was curious, you guys might have noticed too, like they had this in the middle of the credits, this little like sentence or two about Avi Arad, and he is definitely, I mean, like my buddy and I were like, did someone lose a bet? Did he demand this? Like, how did that happen? Because he's not necessarily beloved by, the Marvel Nation. It's Legion of fans. He's the one.
Well, look, it wasn't a hat tip. It wasn't a hat tip to Ike Promoter. You know what I mean? It was, because Feige would have quit. So but yeah, I did see that, and I don't know that much about that story. He was a producer on some of the animated stuff, and then in the early movies. I don't
was
quite.
The one who basically was like, "Take the rights, please." Like from what I know,
Sony.
Yeah, well, it's funny, but even before like some of the other Marvel titles, I think like some of those lesser Marvel movies from like the 80s, early 90s, I think he was in the mix with those. I don't know the full
Yeah.
story, but
Yeah, he was one of the people who owned a lot of the movie rights after
yeah.
the whole bankruptcy when they sold the rights to like a lot of their
Yeah.
characters, and he
Yeah,
was kind
so
of instrumental in letting them go. And then with the Spider-Man thing, he was very involved in
yeah, his name's on
progressively
a
less
bunch of
involved,
them.
but all of the movies, all of the
Yeah.
Spider-Man movies, he's been involved in. So
So it was interesting. It was almost like I don't know if they needed to like calm him down over something, but it felt even the language of it was kind of funky. It felt like there was
I thought he
Yeah.
died, is what I thought it
That's
was.
what
No,
I
I think
thought too. And then I
I
looked
did
it
too,
up
but
and I
no,
saw he didn't. Yeah.
he's
I
still
thought,
alive.
but I was like, oh, he must have died. But yeah.
Yeah,
But
I
I
don't know.
wasn't sure
There's
if
a
you
lot.
guys knew something, Christian, if when you were, Monday when you were seeing this movie with your real friends, if
Yeah. When
something was whispered.
yeah, all my fellow industry insiders, we didn't really talk about that. We were much more excited about Charlie Cox's Kane.
I feel like it
Uh,
could be Feige too, wanting to like maybe calm the waters for people and be like, because there is a lot of
Yeah.
fandom dislike for Avi because of lots of viral tweets and things of that nature, which are not even necessarily confirmed. So, um, I think it all potentially it could have just been them saying like, no, we legitimately could not have made this movie without him,
right.
and so like he's cool, be cool, everybody be cool, kind of like a thing.
Put the gun
Well,
down.
yeah.
Right.
On that note, I appreciate everybody who joined us in the live chat. It's to actually get to finally get this movie that the anticipation was so high and finally be able to talk about it is great. And Katie, I know you were up late and worked all day, so we'll be able to let you turn in a moment. But if people want to find you and continue the conversation, where do they do that?
You can find me across all social media, KT_Christine, Twitter, TikTok, which I was not on for a week because I did not want this to get spoiled. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Twitch. I'm trying to get back into Twitch streaming because I took a unplanned hiatus, but I did come back on Spider-Man Day, so you guys can find me streaming pretty late at night when I have time on there. Also over at the Con Guys, who popped into the chat earlier. They are
Yeah.
my partners in crime. We do our podcasts on Monday night called The Happy Hour with the Con Guy, where we talk about all things convention related, convention news, aka also movies, because obviously 2020 put the conventions on hold a little bit. So I do that, but I'm also part of the Con Girls, which is the sister network, where we talk about things from a female perspective, because sometimes that's needed. Anyway, and then yeah, pretty much live tweeting anytime I see something. And every time I'm watching something, Christian can tell you I tweet way too much. Like I am addicted to Twitter. So
Well, no, but I didn't have time for a Spider-Man rewatch, so I really enjoyed you live tweeting it because
my
it reminded
ramblings.
me of a lot of things, like the Toby and Andrew movies. It reminded
Yes.
me of a lot of things, and speaking of cons, I think I'm gonna duck into the Comic-Con Revolution in Ontario over the weekend.
Nice.
Because mostly because Lou Ferrigno is going to be there.
Yeah.
But
He's at everything. You know that
Yeah.
the pandemic is getting better when Lou Ferrigno shows up again.
yeah, but he's not going to be painted green, so then I have
Yeah.
to really think about it. I'm like, all right, if I take a picture with him, it has to be in black and white because I want to be able to tell people he's green.
Photoshop
I
it.
do
Yeah,
have
that's
one
true.
thing I want to say though in closing.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's not about Spider-Man. Well, it is about Spider-Man. When it comes to spoilers, y'all, it is still opening weekend. Don't
Oh yeah,
make sure you're in a space that people aren't going to get it spoiled for them, because this movie will have a bigger impact to people if it does not get spoiled. Watch things like this. Watch more places where they say it's going to be spoilers. Message people, text people. Don't tweet about it. Don't post videos about it. It just ruins it
well,
for some of the people who
and
really
let me
care.
just throw in: don't like someone's tweet that mentions a
Yes.
spoiler, then because people who follow you are going to see what you liked. And I think that people do that. They're not intending. They don't want to spoil anything, but they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I like that," and they're like, "Oh, I had no idea that they're in the movie." Like something that I didn't care about was the Sex and the City reboot, and like literally people were spoiling a major story point for that, which and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I don't care about that, but boy, usually people wait like a day. And
Yeah.
I'm like, the Sex and the City reboot, I'm going to bet probably a lot of those people are waiting till the weekend where they might have time to watch it, or maybe after the weekend when their kids go back to school. And so, yeah, that was right before this. So that made me nervous. I'm like, oh man, Spider-Man spoilers are going to be everywhere. But so far, so good.
It's mostly YouTube and TikTok that are the
yeah.
most bad.
Yeah. In any case, Nate, if people want to keep in touch with you, where do they do that?
I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, LinkedIn, MySpace at Dog Like Nate with 2 G's.
And I believe you'll be joining us for the Hawkeye finale late
Yes.
on. So
Yes,
you'll be
early Wednesday morning.
early Wednesday morning, 1 a.m.
We will
Pacific,
be
4 p.m. Eastern.
Getting that Christmas special, and I am expecting Charlie Cox.
In that episode, look,
I don't think the
to
timing
reason.
was an accident that we got the D'Onofrio reveal, the week that Spider-Man was coming out.
And
they planned all this stuff.
Representatives from Hawkeye, I don't know if it was directors or producers, have said since that episode aired, in that episode, we will know for sure whether or not the Netflix series are canon. We'll be able to determine that.
They said
and that's
that,
kind of what I figured. Yeah, they actually said that. So that tells me, by the way, that it is. Because it's like Feige's comment that, well, the next time you see Matt Murdock,
literally,
that is.
Literally, when I saw him on the screen, I was like, damn you, Feige, you sneaky rat, you. How dare you say that to me and make me happy, but then also not realize that you were literally talking about this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, well, you remember, Christian, too, like, when we saw Kevin Feige speak, like, he talked about how they always do pickups. They always do reshoots. That's scheduled into every single Marvel movie. So, yes, they F with us. Yes, they lie to us with their trailers brilliantly, mind you. But there's also, like, they're constantly patchworking these things, even before all the COVID madness. So,
look,
that's their model.
There's definitely moments in this movie where they seem to like take a beat and explain Tom Holland's Peter changing his costume. Like, oh, thanks for washing my costume. Little things like that.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh yeah, he is wearing a different costume in this scene now, and you do wonder, I'm like, what order did they shoot this in? And I don't need to get too bogged down into that. But Eric, before you give your plugs, Jason Blair has a comment that I think is right there for you. I'm waiting for the Hawkeye multiverse where Alan Alda comes through the portal. That's the Hawkeye multiverse that I know. Eric
that is my prediction of how the finale is going to go.
That Alan Alda comes through the portal.
Yeah. Can save Christmas.
Yeah. Well, look, somebody's got to. Eric, if people want to keep in touch with you, how do they do that?
Right there, Count Eric Connor over on Instagram and I don't know, other places.
But if people, it's not a rip roaring multiversal fun. But if people want to check out your film, where can they do that?
Yeah, Other Voices / Aswat Acharim. Yes, fancy title. It's hanging out on Amazon Prime, waiting for your hard-earned dollars if you're kind enough to rent it. It's a very important documentary. Nothing to do with any multiverses or Spider-Man, but still worth seeing. And I'm sorry, I haven't been on TikTok since 2016, so yeah, you still have to sort of find me elsewhere.
You gotta find him elsewhere. Well, of course, you can find me at Christian DMZ, Twitter and Instagram. I don't even pretend that I understand TikTok. But please subscribe to the Blackcast YouTube channel, BLADTCAST. That's when you'll always know that we're doing one of these live special shows, which I guess, we've got another Spider-Man show, as I mentioned, Monday, the 20th of December at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. And, of course, our Hawkeye finale in the wee hours, 1 a.m. Pacific on Wednesday. That is all the time we have for now. We will see you next time. And as the great Stan Lee would say, Excelsior!